Under the endless silence of deep space, a listening post drifted near the edge of Earth's solar system. It was old, so old that most of humanity had forgotten it even existed. For centuries it had orbited Neptune, its black hull hidden against the void, waiting patiently for a signal that never came until now. The darkness shivered as a pulse of energy rippled through the void. A single tone, quiet yet heavy with power, struck the station's sensors. The machines inside the post flickered, awake after generations of sleep, systems long frozen lit with faint light. A message older than human memory began to play. No one on Earth expected it. The first signs were faint distortions in deep space scans picked up by a young technician named Avery. She had been running routine sweeps of the outer system, her eyes half focused on the dull green glow of the screen, when she noticed something wrong. The static patterns were too precise, too deliberate. It was as if the universe itself was speaking in code. At first she thought it was an error, a glitch, maybe interference from solar wind. She checked again and again. The pattern stayed exact, repeating like a heartbeat. She called her superior, who dismissed her findings, claiming the machines were old, unreliable, but Avery refused to let it go. Something inside her whispered that what she had found mattered. She stayed past her shift alone in the observation chamber, staring at the sequence. Every 15 seconds the pulse returned, deep, strong and exact. It did not drift, it did not fade. This was not random, it was a message from something intelligent, something waiting. The news traveled quickly through hidden channels to the small circle of people who still knew of the listening post. They were not politicians, not generals, but shadows of a forgotten order, scientists and officers who once guarded secrets buried before modern nations had even formed. They gathered in an underground facility beneath the Arctic ice, far from the public eye, and listened as the pulse continued. For hours they argued. Some claimed it was alien, others feared it was human in origin, a remnant of an ancient program best left sealed. But then the data revealed its true source. The signal was not just anywhere in space, it was coming from a structure hidden in the orbit of Neptune, a structure no telescope had ever recorded, a structure that had been deliberately cloaked. They called it the Shadow Gate. The Shadow Gate had no clear shape from the reports. It looked like a ring of black stone and metal hanging in the void. Its surface absorbed all light, swallowing it completely like a wound in the stars. Nothing about it made sense. It was too large to be natural, too complex to be chance, and worst of all, it was active. The group in the Arctic base fell into silence as they watched images taken by hidden probes. The ring pulsed faintly with the same rhythm as the signal. Each time it flashed, the space inside the ring seemed to ripple as though it were a pool of liquid about to break apart. From the silence of deep space they could almost imagine something knocking from the other side. Fear spread quickly even among those who had lived their entire lives in secrecy. Whispers carried weight. The Shadow Gate was never supposed to wake again. Generations ago humanity had sealed it. Their ancestors had fought to bury the truth and lock the gate away, but now after centuries the lock had weakened and the key had turned itself. Avery was summoned to the Arctic base. She was nervous, young and untested, but her discovery had made her valuable. They showed her the chamber where walls of glass displayed images of the gate flickering in the blackness. She felt a chill crawl across her skin. It was not simply an object, it was watching her somehow, as though her eyes on it meant its eyes on her. In the days that followed, the signal grew stronger. The pulse quickened to every 10 seconds, then every 8. The listening post's ancient systems strained under the weight of power until sparks burned across its panels, yet the message never faltered. It repeated, a pattern of sounds rising and falling, almost like a voice too deep to be human. The message was run through every decoder, every computer. No answer came, yet one fact became clear: the signal was not a warning, it was an invitation. Across the world strange disturbances began to rise. Long-range satellites flickered with unexplained static, power grids near the poles surged with energy. Animals across the seas and skies moved in restless patterns, as if guided by forces unseen. Humanity had always believed itself alone, masters of its fate. Now doubt crept into every corner. Rumors began to leak. Soldiers stationed near Antarctica whispered of movement in places no one was allowed to see. Freight planes carried sealed containers into the ice, never to emerge again. Some spoke of ships enormous and sleeping, hidden deep under the frozen earth, waiting for a day of awakening. Others laughed, dismissing it all as fantasy, but Avery had seen too much to laugh. She knew the world was changing. Late one night she stood at the edge of the ice base, looking out across the frozen wasteland. The sky above shimmered with auroras brighter than ever before, dancing in colors no human eye had recorded. The air hummed with unseen energy. She felt it pressing on her skin in waves, like the heartbeat of something vast and restless. Behind her the commanders spoke in hushed tones. They argued whether to keep the Shadow Gate secret or reveal it to the world, but even they seemed unsure. Secrets that big never stayed buried forever. The pulse grew louder, the gate waited. And then the impossible happened. For the first time since its creation, the shadow gate stirred. The ring twisted, slowly rotating in silence. A deep vibration shuddered through the void as light bled from cracks along its surface. The space within it rippled, not with one pulse but many, overlapping like the sound of countless voices shouting at once. The listening post short-circuited, sparks tearing through its halls before the feed went black. But Avery and the others still saw the final image frozen on their screens. The center of the shadow gate had shifted, no longer black, no longer empty. It glowed with a faint blue storm swirling inward to infinity, a doorway open not to nothing but to somewhere else. The room fell silent. Not even breath dared break the air, for in that moment everyone knew the truth. Humanity was not alone. The gate was a bridge, and something beyond it had been waiting, patient for centuries, hungry for release. And deep in the cold silence of the Arctic, Avery whispered words she could not stop. The fleet will have to wake. The hidden fleet of Earth must rise again. The pulse quickened. The storm inside the gate widened. The first shadow moved against the light. The waiting was over. Snow and wind howled across the frozen desert of Antarctica, but under the ice something older than nations slept in the hidden base where Avery had been brought. The atmosphere was tight with fear and tension. Every screen showed the shadow gate still pulsing in the distant void. Each wave of energy felt stronger, more alive, as though the gate itself was breathing. But it was not the gate alone that carried secrets. The base itself was built on one. Its walls led to tunnels that reached far beneath the ice, down into chambers where the temperature never rose above freezing. Within those vast hidden halls lay shadows of metal and steel, shapes so massive they seemed like mountains in slumber. Entire fleets of ships sealed under the ice, waiting silent for centuries. Avery followed Commander Hale through those tunnels. He was a tall, hard man with lines across his face etched by years of war, yet his voice carried a strange calm. He had not explained much, only that what she was about to see was not a story, not a myth, but the truth. The first chamber they entered opened like a cathedral. Its roof was a dome of black rock coated with frost, but the floor was a vast hangar stretching farther than Avery could see. Lights flickered on, one by one, illuminating colossal shapes half buried in ice. Stood ships unlike anything she had imagined. Their hulls were dark, armored with plates thicker than any modern vessel. Their spines were covered in strange symbols, faintly glowing as if reacting to her presence. Avery froze, her breath caught in her throat. These were not prototypes, these were not broken relics. They looked alive, engines large enough to power cities sat silent, yet ready. A chill ran down her spine as she realized the stories were real. The hidden fleet of Earth was not legend, it was here. Hale's voice broke the silence. These ships were built long before you were born, long before your parents were born. They were forged for a war that never reached history books. Humanity nearly destroyed itself to keep them secret, but now with the gate stirring we have no choice but to wake them. She walked closer to the nearest ship. Its hull stretched upward into shadow. Its surface was rough with scars like wounds healed long ago. She placed a hand against the frozen steel and felt a faint vibration, as if something inside was aware of her touch. "Who built them?" she whispered. Her voice echoed through the chamber. Hale's eyes narrowed. "The records say they were built by us, but not the us you know. Humanity had help once, allies from beyond stars, ships made with human hands and alien knowledge. Together when the war ended they buried everything, erased every trace. For centuries we pretended it never happened." Avery turned to him. The war ended. Who was the enemy? He did not answer. Instead, he led her deeper into the chamber, past rows of towering ships, each marked with symbols that pulsed like heartbeats. Some bore shapes like wings, others like blades. Every design felt purposeful. Each vessel seemed more than a machine. They felt like soldiers waiting for orders. Finally they stopped before a sealed door. The metal was thick, reinforced with locks glowing faint red. Hale placed his hand on a panel and the locks hissed open, releasing a burst of cold air. The chamber beyond was smaller, yet what lay within dwarfed anything Avery had imagined. It was a flagship. Its size filled the cavern like a beast chained in stone, hundreds of meters long, armored with layered plating. Its bow pointed like a spear aimed at eternity. Engines lined its rear, vast and silent. The vessel's name was etched in ancient script across its side. Avery could not read it, yet somehow the meaning struck her heart. Defender of Earth. Hale looked at the ship with a grim expression. When the shadow gate last stirred, this ship led the defense. It was the first to strike and the last to fall. When the battle ended it was sealed away so no one would ever awaken it again until now. A shiver passed through Avery. The fleet had not just been hidden, it had been buried like a weapon too dangerous to ever use again, and now it was being called upon once more. Back in the control chamber, alarms began to scream. The shadow gate's pulse had doubled, growing more violent. The space within its ring no longer shimmered faintly but churned with violent storms of light. Lightning crackled across the void around it. Swallowing probes sent too close. One last transmission showed a dark shape moving within the storm before the feed cut to black. Panic rippled through the base. Officers shouted reports. Some demanded the fleet be activated immediately. Others argued that waking the ships might trigger whatever lurked beyond. Hale silenced them all with a single command: prepare the fleet. Teams of engineers rushed through the tunnels, floodlights blazed across the chambers as systems long frozen sparked back to life, massive generators roared under the ice pumping power into the slumbering ships. One by one faint glows appeared across their hulls as ancient cores began to stir. The sound was terrifying, a deep groan of metal awakening after centuries echoed like thunder through the frozen caverns. Avery stood watching, her hands trembling. The ships were not dead, they were waiting, and now they were waking. But as the fleet stirred, strange events began across the earth. Power surges blacked out entire cities, storms erupted in skies that had been calm, lights danced across horizons where no auroras should exist. The Shadowgate signal seemed to infect the very air around the world. People reported dreams of cold dark eyes watching from the stars, whispers in unknown tongues haunted their sleep. And in the Arctic base, Avery felt the same. In her dreams she stood before the Shadowgate alone as it opened wider and wider, revealing a storm filled with shadows. One shadow broke free, reaching toward her, whispering in a voice that rattled her bones, "We remember you, we are coming." She woke drenched in sweat to the sound of sirens. The base shook with vibrations as if the very ice was splitting. She ran to the hangar where engineers shouted over the roar. The flagship was moving. The Defender of Earth shifted slightly, breaking free from its icy tomb. Metal groaned as supports cracked apart, lights flared across its hull, engines hummed low and powerful like the growl of a beast tasting air again. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Humanity had built this to face an enemy they had tried to forget, but enemies never stayed forgotten. The Shadowgate flared again, brighter than ever. A surge of light raced through the solar system, striking Earth's atmosphere. Communications failed, satellites fell silent, even modern warships in orbit lost contact. For a moment Earth stood blind. In that silence the ancient fleet continued to wake. Ships lifted slowly from their icy prisons, rising into hangars filled with mist. Engines hummed stronger, brighter symbols glowed across their armored sides. The ground trembled under their power. Avery stood at the edge of the chamber watching, unable to breathe. These ships were not myths, they were salvation or doom, and soon the world would know them. Because the Shadowgate was not waiting anymore, it was opening wider every hour, and something beyond it had already begun to push against the light. The hidden fleet of Earth was waking, and the storm had only just begun. Engines that had not burned for centuries roared awake beneath the Antarctic ice. The ground shook as frozen walls split and collapsed. Ships the size of cities groaned and shifted, their ancient frames trembling under the strain of rebirth. Avery stood on the observation deck, her wide eyes fixed on the flagship as it tore free from its icy tomb. Steam hissed in massive waves as heat from the reactors melted frozen stone. The Defender of Earth was alive again. The base echoed with shouts, engineers rushed between glowing panels, sparks sprayed from consoles as systems overloaded, generators strained under the enormous power draw, and deep in the hangars, one by one the ships of the hidden fleet opened their eyes. Lights crawled along their armored skins, forming patterns like constellations. Weapons once sealed in darkness rotated slowly as if testing their strength. For the first time in human history since the Forgotten War, Earth's secret armada was awake. Commander Hale's voice rang across the chamber, steady and grim. Status reports, all divisions report in. Within moments voices answered one after another, engines warming, weapons aligning, shields unstable but rising. It was a chorus of power returning from death. The fleet was not whole yet, but it was breathing. Avery could not pull her gaze from the flagship. It seemed more than a machine, it pulsed with energy that made the air hum in her chest. She felt as though the ship itself knew the gate was stirring and it hungered for battle. She whispered without meaning, "To what are you really?" As if answering, the ship shuddered and a low vibration rolled through the hangar. A console beside her flashed alive, displaying lines of alien script mixed with human code. No one touched it, yet the words arranged themselves into something Avery could almost understand: awaiting command. The fleet's awakening was not silent. Beyond the base, seismic sensors across the continent registered massive quakes. Ice shelves fractured, sending sheets into the ocean around the world. Strange lights filled the skies as if the Earth itself was reacting to the power surge. Entire cities lost power, rivers of static swept across communication lines, and in orbit satellites picked up bursts of radiation from the direction of Neptune. The Shadowgate pulsed faster and brighter, answering the fleet's awakening like a heartbeat echoing through space. In the command chamber, Hale watched grimly as new data streamed across the screens. A probe had been sent again toward the gate. Despite interference, its cameras captured a single frame before being destroyed. In that frame, a shape emerged from the storm within the gate, long and jagged like the spine of a beast. It was not human, it was waiting. Hale closed his fist and gave the order, "Bring the fleet online, prepare for launch." Engineers protested the systems were unstable. The ships had not moved for centuries. The risk of failure was high. Hale silenced them with a single glance. "If the enemy crosses that gate, Earth will not survive without these ships. We launch or we die." The preparations began. Crews boarded the massive vessels, climbing into bridges that had not been touched by human hands in lifetimes. Dust-coated consoles lit with alien symbols mixed with old human script. As power surged, the ships responded to their new crews with eerie smoothness, as if they had been waiting for the return of humanity's hand. Avery was pulled into the flagship. She was not trained, not military, but Hale insisted she had been the one to first hear the signal. She had awakened the secret long buried, and now the ship seemed to respond to her. He led her through towering corridors lined with glowing veins of light. The walls whispered with faint vibrations like a heartbeat, guiding her deeper until they reached the bridge. The bridge was vast, with a ceiling that arched like the inside of a cathedral. Rows of consoles surrounded a central throne-like chair facing a wide viewing screen that displayed the frozen tunnels outside. Engineers scrambled into positions, lights blinking across panels. One officer muttered in disbelief, "This ship is running itself." Avery stepped forward. The central console flared, bright symbols crawling across its surface. Her hand trembled as she reached out and touched the glowing surface. The ship's hum deepened, and suddenly the entire bridge lit in response. The viewing screen shifted, showing not just the tunnels but the stars far above, as if the ship's mind was reaching beyond the ice to taste the sky. A voice filled the air, not spoken but felt in every bone, awaiting orders. The crew froze, staring at Avery. Commander Hale's expression darkened, but he did not speak. Instead, he gave the command in a firm voice, "Take us up." Engines ignited like suns. The hangar shook violently as the flagship lifted, ice cracking and falling in waves from its sides. The ground above split wide as the Defender of Earth rose through a shaft carved by its own power. Steam blasted outward as the ship emerged from beneath Antarctica into the night sky. The world below erupted in chaos as satellites detected the impossible, a vessel larger than any human creation rising into the air, its hull glowing with alien light. News channels scrambled to cover it. Those signals faltered under the interference. Some called it a weapon, some called it salvation, but to those who saw it with their own eyes, it was a Titan returning to the battlefield. Other ships followed, one after another, breaking free from their frozen prisons, smaller than the flagship, but still vast. Each vessel rose into the storm-filled sky. Their engines lit the night as if a second dawn had come to the frozen continent. The hidden fleet was no longer hidden, it was alive, and the world could not look away. But the awakening carried consequences. The Shadow Gate flared brighter than ever. Waves of energy surged through the solar system, striking Earth with storms of static and lightning. The ocean boiled near the equator. Winds tore across continents. Unseasonable snow fell in deserts. The gate was not simply opening, it was answering the fleet. It was calling its own. On the bridge of the Defender, alarms screamed. A massive distortion formed near the gate. A shadow larger than any ship appeared, moving slowly through the storm. The viewing screen magnified until details emerged. Jagged armor, black as void, glowing with red fissures. A vessel, but not like theirs. Its design was cruel, its edges sharp like teeth in the dark, and it was coming through. The crew fell silent. Some whispered in fear. Avery's chest tightened as she stared at the monster tearing its way through the gate. It was not alone. Behind it, more shapes moved, hidden in the storm. The enemy had waited centuries, and now the door was open. Commander Hale's voice cut the silence, steady as stone. "All ships form battle line, prepare weapons." The bridge trembled as the Defender's weapons came online. Beams of light gathered along its flanks, missiles armed deep within its hull. The other ships of the fleet responded in kind, forming a wall of firepower across the edge of Earth's orbit. For the first time in ages, humanity stood ready for war. But Avery could not shake the feeling deep inside her. The ship pulsed in rhythm, with her heartbeat whispering in words she could not fully understand. It was alive, more alive than any machine had a right to be, and it knew the enemy. It had fought them before it remembered. The first alien ship broke free of the gate. Fully its size dwarfed even the Defender. Its hull glowed with veins of red fire, as if it carried the heat of another world. It opened its maw like a beast, and energy gathered within, ready to strike. The battle for Earth was about to begin. And Avery realized with chilling certainty that the awakening of the fleet was not enough. Something darker was coming through the Shadow Gate, something far beyond what they were prepared to face. The real war had yet to start. The Shadow Gate pulsed like a wounded star. Its light washed across the solar system, sending violent storms of radiation through space and into Earth's skies. Satellites failed, one after another, falling silent as if swallowed by invisible hands. The world's eyes turned upward. But only a few knew the truth. Only a few knew what was about to step through. Avery stood on the bridge of the Defender of Earth, staring at the enormous viewing screen. The Shadow Gate filled the image, a black ring glowing with a storm of blue and violet fire. Within the swirling light, something was moving. Shapes shifted, shadows stretched. Her chest tightened with every heartbeat. She could not look away. The crew around her moved in a rush. Voices called, reports, weapons charged, shields strained to hold steady. Commander Hale stood in the center of the bridge, calm though the weight of fear pressed down on every soul. He spoke with a voice that cut through the chaos. "All ships maintain formation. Do not fire until I give the order." Outside, the fleet spread across the stars, a line of steel rising from centuries of silence. The smaller ships flanked the Defender like wolves, guarding their alpha. Their engines burned bright, their weapons pointed toward the gate. They were humanity's last wall. The Shadow Gate pulsed again, brighter than before, and then the storm inside tore open. A massive vessel emerged. Its body was long and jagged, shaped like a blade. Its hull burned with red fissures glowing like molten rock. Every edge seemed designed to wound, to cut, to kill. The ship dwarfed the smaller vessels of Earth, making even the flagship look fragile by comparison. Behind it, more shadows stirred, waiting their turn to pass through the widening gate. The crew of the Defender fell silent. The weight of the alien presence pressed on them like gravity, pressing their lungs. The air felt heavier, colder. It was as though death itself had entered the system. The alien ship moved with deliberate slowness, turning its jagged face toward Earth. For a moment it did not fire. For a moment it simply looked, as if studying, as if remembering. Then light gathered along its body, a beam forming so bright it made the viewing screen flare white. "Commander Hale shouted, shields raise now." The beam struck. A torrent of energy ripped through the void, slamming into the defender's shield. The entire ship shuddered. Metal groaned. Sparks burst from consoles. Avery was thrown to the floor as alarms wailed around her. The shield held, but only barely. "Return fire," Hale ordered. The fleet answered in unison. Earth's hidden ships unleashed their weapons. Beams of light missiles guided by ancient technology streaked across space. The alien ship twisted to avoid some strikes, but not all. Explosions tore across its jagged armor. The creature of steel roared, though no sound carried in space. Its body flared red, brighter than before, and for a moment Avery felt a surge of hope. But the alien ship did not fall. It turned again, and this time the space within the shadow gate rippled as more shapes pushed forward. Another ship emerged, then another, both just as large and cruel as the first. The bridge filled with shouts. "More are coming. We cannot face them all. The formation is breaking." Hale's jaw tightened. He stood like stone, unmoved. "Fire everything on the lead ship. Focus all guns now." The Defender and its fleet obeyed. Every weapon thundered at once. A storm of fire and light consumed the lead alien vessel. The red glow along its body shattered its hull, breaking into pieces that scattered across space. The first enemy ship was destroyed. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but they died quickly as the other two ships cleared the gate. Their bodies glowed brighter with fury, and their weapons began to gather light again. The fleet braced shields. Strained crews fought to keep systems stable. The enemy fired twin beams, tearing into the line of Earth ships. Two vessels exploded instantly, their fragments spinning into the void. Another fell silent, drifting powerless. Avery's stomach twisted as she watched brave men and women vanish in an instant. The shadow gate pulsed again, more violently. The storm inside widened like a wound in space, and through it a monstrous shadow appeared, larger than all the rest. A shape so vast it blotted out the stars. Its outline was wrong, shifting as if alive, made of both metal and something else, something that breathed. On Earth strange effects grew stronger. The sky over cities flashed with unnatural light. Earthquakes shook distant lands. Oceans rose in violent waves. Millions of people who had no idea of the fleet or the gate looked to the heavens in fear. Government scrambled for answers, but the truth was too large to hide. Avery stood frozen on the bridge. She could not tear her eyes from the enormous shadow forcing its way through the gate. She felt something whisper in her mind, cold words that were not hers. "We remember you. We return for what was promised." She stumbled backward. Her breath caught. Her hands shook. The ship pulsed beneath her feet as if it too felt the voice. The crew around her did not react. They had not heard it. The words were for her alone. Hale noticed her pale face, but he said nothing. His focus was on the fleet, on survival. But Avery knew the enemy was not simply attacking. They were speaking. They were reaching into her mind. The alien behemoth began to emerge fully. Its body stretched wider than a city, its surface shifting like black smoke, and burning steel weapons lined its vast frame, glowing with power. It was not just a ship, it was a fortress, a world killer. The Defender's system screamed with warnings, shields failing, weapons overheating, hull stress critical, yet the ship still answered. Every time Avery touched the console, the system steadied, as though the vessel listened to her voice more than the crew's command. She felt its thoughts, not in words, but in pulses, images of battles long ago, of this same enemy breaking through a fire across stars, and human voices crying out in defiance. The ship remembered, and through it, so did she. Hale gave the order, "All ships focus fire, hold them here. We cannot let them cross the orbit line. If they reach Earth, it is over." The fleet obeyed. Weapons blazed again, lighting the darkness. Ships burned on both sides. The battle raged, brutal and merciless. The shadow gate widened more with each passing minute, and the enemy poured through like blood from a wound. Avery's heart pounded. She touched the console again and felt the Defender surge with new strength. Symbols flared brighter across its walls. Shields recharged faster than the engineers could explain. Weapons locked with uncanny precision. Missiles struck true, cutting through alien armor. She was not controlling it, but she was guiding it somehow. Still the enemy pressed forward. Still the massive fortress tore itself free from the gate, and Avery knew with a chilling certainty that this was only the beginning. The enemy had waited centuries. They would not stop now. They were pouring through to finish what they had begun. The shadow gate thundered with light. The alien fortress loomed vast and terrible. The fleet of Earth burned bright but fragile, and Avery felt the whisper again, colder, sharper, closer. "We are coming for you." The storm had opened. The war for the stars had begun. The battle spread across the void like fire in dry grass. Ships of Earth's hidden fleet blazed with light, their weapons tearing into the darkness as alien vessels poured through the shadow gate. The stars themselves seemed to vanish beneath the storm. The first clash had been desperate, but now it was all survival. A war that had slept for centuries was alive again. On the bridge of the Defender of Earth, alarms wailed. Crews shouted over one another as sparks flew from damaged consoles. Avery clung to her station, her fingers pressed against the glowing surface of the ship's control core. The vessel thrummed under her touch, alive, pulsing with strange energy, as if it trusted her more than anyone else around her. Officers scrambled to hold the line. Commander Hale stood at the center, calm but grim, his voice cutting through the chaos with sharp commands. "Hold. Formation, target their flanks. Do not let them reach orbit." But the enemy was relentless. The alien fortress half emerged from the shadow gate was far larger than anything human eyes had ever seen. Its body writhed with burning red fissures and shifting black smoke. Its weapons unleashed beams of power that tore through space with surgical cruelty. One blast cut an Earth vessel in half, scattering its pieces into the void. Another ship screamed over comms before vanishing in a burst of light. The crew of the Defender watched in silence, each loss carved into their hearts. Avery felt the ship's hum deepen. Symbols ran across the console in streams she could not fully read, but she understood their meaning. The Defender wanted to strike, it wanted to fight. She whispered almost without thinking, "Guide me, show me." The lights flared brighter, and the ship's cannons locked on. Their own engines roared, and the entire vessel surged forward, cutting across the battle line. Hale's eyes snapped to her. "What are you doing?" The ship responded before she could answer. A barrage of missiles fired in perfect sequence, crashing into one of the alien blade ships still pushing through the gate. The explosions tore across its side, breaking through armor and igniting its core. The alien vessel convulsed before splitting apart. The blast lit the void like a false sun. The crew gasped. A cheer rose but was cut short as the fortress responded. Its massive body turned slowly, focusing on the Defender. Energy gathered along its hull, a burning storm that made every sensor scream with warning. The enemy was preparing a strike powerful enough to break the flagship in one blow. Hale shouted evasive maneuvers, shields full, but Avery felt the Defender move before the commands reached it. Veered sharply, engines flaring as the enemy beam fired. A torrent of burning light ripped past them, grazing the hull with fire. The entire ship shuddered. Metal buckled walls trembled, yet they survived. Avery fell against her console, breathless. The ship pulsed again like a heart beating in her chest. The crew stared at her, some in fear. Hale's jaw tightened. He did not trust what was happening, but he could not deny it. The ship was listening to her. Across the battlefield, the rest of the fleet fought with everything they had. Smaller ships swarmed like wolves, biting at the larger alien vessels. Their cannons shredded enemy armor, while others sacrificed themselves, ramming into weak points to buy time. The void was filled with fire, explosions, and wreckage. The shadow gate loomed larger each moment, more ships spilling from its storm. The enemy was endless. Earth itself watched the chaos through broken transmissions. News channels showed fragments of the battle to billions of frightened eyes. Cities fell into silence as governments scrambled to explain. Crowds gathered in the streets, staring at the skies as storms of unnatural light swept across the atmosphere. No one knew if they would survive the night. Inside the Defender, Avery's mind swam with strange images, flashes of battles long ago. She saw humans and aliens fighting side by side against these same enemies. She saw the Defender leading fleets into fire. She felt their pain, their triumph, their sacrifice. It was not only memory, it was warning. The ship remembered everything, and now it was giving those memories to her. The alien fortress shifted again, its body cracked wider, glowing brighter, as if birthing weapons too vast to comprehend. Smaller alien ships swarmed around it, shielding its advance. The fleet of Earth fired desperately, but the wall of enemy vessels absorbed the blows. The fortress aimed toward Earth, its intention clear. It would not simply fight the fleet, it would destroy the world itself. Hale's voice hardened. "We cannot let it pass. Every ship focus fire on the fortress now." The Defender surged ahead, its cannons unleashed streams of light, its missiles screamed into the void. The other ships followed their combined fire, tearing into the enemy wall. Explosions erupted, scattering burning fragments through space. For a moment it seemed possible. For a moment the fortress slowed. Then the shadow gate pulsed again, and something darker stepped through. The void rippled as another ship emerged, not as large as the fortress, but stranger. Its form twisted, unnatural, its armor shifting like liquid. Its weapons glowed a sickly green light, different from the others. Avery felt it the moment it appeared, a chill in her bones, a voice whispering through her mind, "You cannot stop us, we are already here." Her vision blurred, she stumbled, gripping the console. The ship's hum rose in anger, symbols flared across the walls, brighter, faster. Hale shouted her name, but his voice felt far away. She heard only the whisper of the enemy pressing into her skull. Images filled her mind, Earth burning, cities falling, shadows pouring across skies. The voice hissed, "You are the key, the gate opens because of you." She screamed, pushing back with everything inside her. The Defender roared with her. A pulse of energy burst from the ship like a wave slamming across the battlefield. The alien fortress shuddered, its escort ships staggered, shields flared and collapsed. The green twisted vessel recoiled. For the first time the whisper in her mind broke into static. The crew stared wide-eyed. "What was that? What did you do?" Avery collapsed against her seat, trembling. "I don't know." Hale's eyes locked on her, cold and searching, but he said nothing. Instead he turned back to the battle. "Focus fire. The fortress is wounded. Strike now." The fleet obeyed, pouring every last weapon into the alien fortress. Explosions ripped through its body, tearing open glowing wounds. Light spilled from its cracks, and for the first time it seemed to falter. Its massive form slowed, drifting like a wounded beast. The fleet pressed harder, desperate to finish the kill. But the fortress was not dying, it was transforming. Its wounds glowed brighter until fire poured outward, not as destruction but as birth. From the cracks new shapes emerged, smaller ships unfolding from its body like swarms of hornets, each one armed, each one alive. They screamed into the void, turning the tide again. The crew of the Defender froze in horror. The enemy fortress was not one ship, it was many. It carried its own fleet inside. Avery's chest tightened. She felt the ship tremble, not with fear, but with fury. The Defender's symbols flared across every wall, brighter than the stars outside. The voice filled her mind again, but this time it was not alien, it was the ship itself. Defend them all, do not let Earth fall. Her hands slammed against the console. Without thought, energy surged through the ship. Cannons fired in a storm. Missiles launched in perfect patterns. Beams of pure light cut through the swarm's enemy ships. Exploded one after another in chains of fire. The Defender moved like a predator, not bound by human delay. It danced through chaos, striking with impossible precision. The alien fortress roared in response. Its weapons gathered again, a storm of red energy brighter than before. Hale gave the order, shields full. All hands braced. The crew held their breath as the monster unleashed its fury. The screen filled with light. Avery felt the ship scream. She pressed harder against the console, pouring herself into it. The Defender's shields flared stronger than ever, the beam tearing against them until the bridge shook. The floor split and alarms cried out, but the ship held. It refused to break. When the light faded, the fortress still loomed, but its glow was dimmer. Its swarms scattered, its body cracked further. The fleet of Earth, battered and blooded, pressed the attack again. Avery's breath came in ragged gasps, her vision blurred, but she felt the Defender pulse with her. Still alive, still fighting. Hale looked at her with eyes that held both fear and respect. He whispered, not for her, but for himself. Maybe this ship chose you. The battle raged on, but the fortress was not defeated yet. The shadow gate pulsed. Brighter shapes still moved in the storm. More enemies waiting, more horrors ready to come. And Avery knew with cold certainty that this was only the beginning. The first contact firestorm had begun, and Earth's hidden fleet was all that stood between survival and extinction. The void burned with fire and broken steel. The hidden fleet of Earth fought with all its power, but the enemy poured from the shadow gate without end. Fragments of ships drifted lifeless in the dark. Their flames glowed against the black like dying stars. Avery stood on the bridge of the Defender of Earth, her body trembling, her eyes locked on the enormous viewing screen. Every second the fortress loomed larger. Every second the storm inside the gate widened. More shadows moved within, waiting to strike. Commander Hale gave orders with steady force, but even his voice carried strain. Shields at maximum, hold the line, we must not break. Officers obeyed with sweat and fear dripping from every movement. The air was thick with smoke from burning panels. Sparks rained down as the bridge shuddered under another blast. The crew knew many ships had already fallen, but there was no space for grief, only survival. The alien fortress turned again, its surface cracked and glowing. Its swarm of smaller vessels spread like knives through the battlefield, their weapons cut through steel and shield alike. Entire wings of Earth ships were torn apart in flashes of red and green light. Avery felt each loss in her chest, as if the Defender itself was mourning. She pressed her hand against the console, and the ship pulsed back. Symbols ran across the glass. She could not read them, yet she understood. Fight with us. The Defender roared forward. Cannons blazed. Missiles streaked through the void. Beams of light cut swarms to pieces. Every movement was sharp, precise, as if the ship was alive. Avery felt it thinking with her, guiding her. She no longer questioned the bond. The Defender wanted to defend Earth as much as she did. It had memory, it had purpose. Still the enemy pressed stronger. The fortress aimed its colossal weapons at the heart of the fleet. Energy gathered into a storm so bright it blinded senses. Hale shouted, all ships scatter, scatter. Now the fleet broke apart in a desperate maneuver, engines burning at full. The alien blast ripped forward, tearing through space. It split into three beams, scything across the stars. Several Earth ships screamed over comms before vanishing into silence. The rest staggered out of formation, scattered and exposed. The alien swarm rushed to exploit the break. They cut between the human ships, driving them apart, isolating them. One vessel after another fell silent. The fleet was being broken down piece by piece. Avery's heart raced. She pressed her palm against the console harder. Ship, help me, help them. The Defender pulsed again, brighter than ever. Energy surged through its weapons. It spun with impossible speed, unleashing a wall of fire that tore a path through the swarm. Explosions ripped across the void, clearing the way. Hale's eyes widened in shock. He gave the order, follow the Defender, regroup on their line. The fleet answered. They rallied around the flagship, using its firepower to shield their retreat. Together they formed a new line, battered but not broken. The Defender stood at the center, its light blazing brighter than all. But Avery was not untouched. Each time the ship poured its strength through her, she felt weaker. Her vision blurred, her chest tightened. The alien whisper had not left her mind. It lingered, waiting. The words returned soft and cold. You are the key, child of Earth. The gate opens for you. She shook her head, refusing to answer, but the voice laughed. The fortress wants you. It will not stop until it takes you. The bridge shook again. Another blast struck their shields. Hale gripped the railing, his jaw like stone. He looked at Avery with hard eyes and spoke in a voice meant only for her. Whatever this ship is doing with you, keep it up. It is the only reason we are alive. The battle raged on. Hours felt like seconds. The void was littered with wreckage, human and alien. Both the fleet held, but barely. The shadow gate pulsed again, and then something happened that froze every soul on the bridge. The fortress stopped firing. It drifted in silence, massive and terrible. Its swarm pulled back, circling around it as if awaiting command. The storm in the gate dimmed slightly but did not close. Instead it pulsed in rhythm with the fortress. The viewing screen magnified the giant form, and then they saw it. The front of the fortress cracked open slowly. It unfolded like a single glowing sphere emerged from within, not a weapon, not a missile, but something different. It glowed blue and white, shifting with strange patterns. It pulsed once and every human ship went dark. The Defender's bridge plunged into silence. Consoles blacked out, lights died, engines fell quiet. Avery gasped as the connection to the ship vanished. For the first time, the entire fleet drifted powerless in the void. The alien swarm circled like wolves around a cornered herd. The fortress glowed with red fire, ready to strike. The humans were helpless. Panic erupted on the bridge. Officers shouted, engineers slammed their fists on dead panels. Hale barked orders, but there was nothing to obey. The ship was dead. Avery's chest tightened, her breath shallow. She reached out to the console again. It was cold, no pulse, no voice. She closed her eyes. Please, not now, please wake up. And then she heard it, faint, deep, the heartbeat of the Defender returning. Symbols flickered dimly under her hand. The ship whispered, "We are not gone, hold on." Light burst through the bridge. Consoles roared back, shields flared, weapons armed, engines ignited. The Defender blazed alive again. Avery gasped, tears in her eyes. The fleet followed one by one as systems reawakened. The alien sphere pulsed again, but this time the ships resisted. The signal could not hold them. Hale gave the order, fire with everything you have. The Defender and the fleet unleashed their fury. Missiles slammed into the sphere, beams carved it apart. The alien fortress tried to shield it, but failed. The glowing orb cracked, then exploded in a burst of light. The shockwave tore through the swarms, scattering them. The fortress itself staggered, its glow faltering. For the first time, the enemy looked vulnerable. The fleet roared forward like wolves on the hunt. They fired relentlessly, cutting deep wounds into the fortress. Its armor split, its swarm thinned. The battle turned. Humanity was striking back. But victory was not yet. There's the shadow gate pulsed harder. The storm widened, and deep inside, shapes larger than the fortress moved, waiting to emerge. Avery's blood ran cold. She felt the whisper again, louder, "You are chosen, you cannot resist. The real war begins when we arrive." She fell to her knees, gripping the console. The ship pulsed around her, comforting, defiant. Hale knelt beside her, his voice softer than before. "What did you hear?" She looked into his eyes, pale and shaking. "They are not here yet. What we face is only the beginning." The bridge fell silent. The crew looked at one another, fear gripping their hearts. Outside, the fortress still burned, but the shadow gate widened more with every second. The battle for the shadow gate was far from over. It had only just begun. The fortress burned across the void. Its broken body glowed with cracks of red fire. The swarm around it thinned, scattered by the fury of Earth's hidden fleet, but the shadow gate behind it pulsed larger with every passing moment. The storm was alive, bright, and terrible shapes moved within, far larger than anything yet seen. On the bridge of the Defender of Earth, silence held for a single breath, then alarms screamed again. Panels lit, red warnings filled the air. The crew worked with frantic speed. Avery pressed against the console, her hands trembling as the ship pulsed with her heartbeat. The connection was strong but heavy, like a weight pressing into her chest. Each time she guided the ship, she felt herself slipping weaker, but she would not stop. She could not stop. Commander Hale stood steady at the center, his eyes locked on the screen, his jaw clenched as he gave orders. "Hold position, keep fire on the fortress, do not let it recover, we end this now." The fleet answered. The remaining ships fired together. Streams of missiles streaked into the void, lasers and cannons tore across the alien giant. Explosions burst through its wounds. The fortress staggered again, but even broken it was monstrous. The alien swarm struck back, desperate, furious. They cut into the human line with wild power. Each attack ripped ships apart. Entire crews vanished in flashes of fire. Earth's fleet tightened their formation, using the Defender as their shield. Still they lost ground. Still the shadow gate grew. Avery gasped as visions poured into her mind. The ship was showing her flashes again. Ancient battles, humans long ago fighting this same enemy. Ships burning across the stars, sacrifices made to hold the line. She saw them all, and she knew this was not the first war. This was the continuation of something older. She whispered to the ship, "Show me what to do." The console flared with light. Symbols she could not read streamed across the glass. The Defender's weapons locked in perfect sequence. Its cannons glowed brighter than before. Hale turned to her, eyes wide. "What are you doing?" She did not answer. Instead, the ship fired. A single beam tore from the Defender, pure white, brighter than any star. It cut straight through the fortress, smashing into its core. The alien giant roared. Fire burst across its surface. Whole sections of its body collapsed into the void. The fortress was wounded, truly wounded for the first time. The fleet cheered over comms, their voices filled with hope. The enemy can fall, they can fall. But hope turned to silence when the shadow gate split open wider. A shape emerged, far larger than the fortress. It was not one ship, it was a leviathan, a creature of steel and shadow stretching across the stars. Its body rippled with scales of black metal, its eyes burned with green fire. Its maw opened, and within was not light but endless dark. The crew of the Defender froze in terror. Hale whispered words no one wanted to hear. "That is not a ship." The swarm scattered, making space for the Leviathan. The fortress itself seemed to bow to it. The storm of the gate bent like waves around its form. The whispers in Avery's head screamed, now louder than ever. "The real war begins, child of Earth. The gate was only the door. We are the storm." She fell forward, clutching her chest. Pain ripped through her skull. The voice pressed deeper, trying to break her. The ship pulsed back with fury, defending her, but the strain was unbearable. She forced words through her breath. "They want to take me. They want me to open it wider." Hale gripped her shoulders, his eyes hard. Fight it, we need you, the world needs you. The Leviathan opened, its more energy gathered inside, not fire not light but shadow itself, a void beam building so vast it could swallow planets. Hale shouted, all ships scatter now. Avery pressed against the console, no, not scatter, together, aim everything at it, we strike now. The Defender pulsed bright as if agreeing, its weapons charged to full. The fleet followed, desperate and brave, missiles launched in swarms, lasers blazed, beams of light crossed the void like a net, they struck the Leviathan's hide, explosions erupted across its scales but it did not flinch, the shadow inside its mouth grew larger, ready to consume all. Avery screamed in her mind, ship give me more, show me everything. The Defender roared, symbols burned across every wall, the ship unleashed its full fury, cannons fired faster, missiles streamed in endless patterns, energy beams tore through the void. The Leviathan staggered, but still it did not fall, its mouth opened wider, the shadow beam fired. The world turned black, the void filled with endless night, the beam tore across the battlefield, swallowing ships whole, entire wings vanished into nothingness, no explosion, no wreckage, only silence. Earth's fleet screamed over comms, then went dark, the line broke. The Defender's shields flared against the wave, the ship shook, walls cracked, alarms wailed. Avery pressed harder, pouring herself into the bond, the ship screamed with her resisting, refusing. The beam tore across them, but the shield held barely. When the light cleared, half the fleet was gone, only silence remained. The bridge fell into quiet, the crew stared at the screen, horror in their eyes. Hale's fists tightened on the railing, but his voice did not waver, we are not done, we will not fall. The Leviathan turned slowly, its eyes burned brighter, its swarm reformed around it, the fortress drifted behind like a broken servant, the shadow gate pulsed again, more shapes waiting to enter, this was only the first. Avery's vision blurred, she saw images again, not just of war but of choice, she saw humans long ago choosing to seal the gate, sacrificing entire fleets to lock it closed. She saw the Defender leading that charge, she realized the truth, the ship was not only a weapon, it was a key, a guardian built to end the gate forever, but only if it had someone willing to give everything. Her breath caught, she whispered, Hale, I know what the ship wants, I know how to close it. Hale turned his eyes sharp, how? Her voice trembled, it will take everything, it will take me. The bridge froze, silence heavier than battle filled the air, officers looked at her, pale and broken. Hale's jaw tightened, his voice cut like steel, not yet, we are not finished, we fight first. The Leviathan roared again, its swarm struck hard, ships exploded across the line, the fleet answered with fire, a storm of light and shadow consumed the void, the Defender at the center burned brightest. Avery held on even as her body weakened, the ship fought with her every pulse, every strike, they moved as one. But deep inside she knew the truth, the gate would not stop, the enemy would not stop, the choice was coming. She felt the ship whisper again in her mind, gentle and strong, defend them all, close the storm. The battle raged on, the Leviathan circled the fortress, bled, the shadow gate pulsed larger still, and Avery stood between survival and sacrifice, her hands on the console, her heart bound to the ship, her fate no longer her own. The next strike would decide everything, the void itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the final clash, waiting for the choice that could save Earth or doom it forever. The void trembled with fire and shadow, the Leviathan of steel and darkness stretched across the stars, its burning eyes fixed on the Defender of Earth. The fortress behind it drifted broken but alive, the shadow gate pulsed wider, tearing reality apart, shapes moved inside waiting to emerge, the fleet of Earth, what was left of it clung together like sparks in a storm, battered ships burned, shields flickered, but still they fought. On the bridge the air was thick with smoke and fear, consoles sparked, crew shouted orders and warnings. Commander Hale stood at the center, his face carved in iron, his voice carried through the chaos, hold the line, we fight until the last breath. The crew answered with shaking hands and steady eyes, they were afraid but they obeyed. Avery pressed against the console, her body weak, her mind burning, symbols flared across the glass, pulsing with her heartbeat. The Defender's light answered every thought, every fear, it was alive and it was with her, she felt the truth deep inside, the ship was more than a weapon, it was the last hope and it needed her fully. The Leviathan roared a sound that shook not through ears but through bones, its maw opened again, building another shadow beam, the void darkened as the energy grew, the surviving fleet moved to scatter. Hale shouted orders, shields up, evasive pattern, now the humans broke apart, engines blazing, desperate to escape the coming storm. Avery shook her head, she pressed harder against the console, her voice cracked, no, we cannot run, if it fires again all of us are gone, we have to end it now. The ship pulsed with her thought, weapons charged brighter than ever, energy screamed through its core, the bridge shuddered as power built beyond safe limits. Hale turned to her, his voice hard, what are you doing, she whispered, sacrifice. Visions filled her mind again, the past, the last defenders of Earth, the first war, humans and ships standing together at the shadow gate, firing their final strike, closing the storm forever. They gave everything, she saw their faces, their courage, their end, and she knew it was her turn. The Leviathan fired, the beam of shadow tore across space, swallowing stars, swallowing life. Avery screamed through the bond, the Defender roared with her, a blast of pure white light erupted from the ship brighter than suns, it clashed with the shadow beam, the void exploded. The two forces tore against each other, white fire against endless dark. The battlefield shook, the surviving ships were thrown back by the shockwave. The Leviathan pushed harder, its roar filled the stars. Darkness spread forward inch by inch, swallowing the white. The crew screamed, shields cracking, hulls tearing. The end was near. Avery fell to her knees, her body broke under the strain, her hands bled against the console, her voice cracked into silence, but her mind stayed. She whispered to the ship, "Take me, take everything, close it forever." The Defender pulsed a final time, light brighter than anything filled the bridge, every panel, every wall glowed. The ship's voice filled her thoughts, not in words but in feeling, pride, honor, love. It accepted her sacrifice. Her body slumped, but her mind burned with the ship. They became one. She was no longer Avery, she was the Defender of Earth. The ship surged with power, energy beyond measure exploded from its core. The white beam turned to a storm, it roared forward, breaking through the Leviathan's shadow. The dark shattered like glass, the Leviathan screamed, its body split, scales of black metal torn away, fire and void ripped through it until it was gone. The fortress crumbled under the blast, explosions consumed it, its swarms scattered and burned. The shadow gate itself shook under the storm, the white light reached inside, tearing at the storm's heart. The gate screamed, the shapes within thrashed but could not emerge. The rift cracked, reality bent, the gate began to collapse. The surviving fleet drifted back, shields down, weapons silent. Their crews watched in awe as the impossible happened. The shadow gate folded on itself, the great storm of darkness shrank, pulled inward piece by piece until nothing was left but empty void. The Defender of Earth hung at the center, glowing like a dying star, its body cracked, its weapons silent, but it was alive. The battle was over, humanity had won. On the bridge silence held, the crew looked around, tears on their faces. Hale stood unmoving, his eyes on the screen. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "Avery." There was no answer, her body lay still at the console, pale, unmoving. The bond had taken everything. Hale's fists clenched, but his eyes did not look away. He knew she had given herself to close the gate, she had saved them all. The surviving ships called over comms, voices filled with broken joy, "We are alive, the gate is gone, Earth is safe, humanity stands." The fleet cheered through grief and fire. They had lost so many, but they had won what no one thought possible. Hale turned to the crew, his voice carried steady and strong, "Record this victory for Earth. Remember the name of every soul who gave all, and remember her, the one who became the Defender." The ship pulsed faintly one last time, lights dim but clear. A feeling washed over the bridge, peace not ending but memory. The Defender was not gone, Avery was not gone, she lived within it, bound forever, guarding Earth from the shadows. The fleet turned for home, slowly, painfully they moved away from the battlefield. The wreckage of friend and foe drifted behind, the stars burned silent again. Hale stood tall, though his chest ached. He knew this was not the end, shadows would return someday, the gate would try again, but Earth was ready, Earth would remember, Earth had defenders. And in the deep silence of space the Defender of Earth drifted with them, a ship with a soul, a guardian with a human heart, bound forever to protect what must never fall. The storm had closed, the fleet had survived, humanity had won its place among the stars, but victory was carved from sacrifice, and the memory of that sacrifice would never fade. The hidden fleet of Earth had awakened, it had fought, it had endured, and it had defended the world against the shadow gate. For now the stars were safe, for now Earth could breathe, but in the dark of the universe beyond the silence whispers still lingered. The storm was not gone forever, it was only waiting. And when it rose again, Earth would rise too, for the Defender would never truly die.